episode, I want to talk about, first let's talk about like the market and outlook for 2024, and then we can get into why refinancing might make sense for like a slew of bunch of reasons.
Yeah, okay. So in the last episode, we've talked about what happened to the buyers that bought last year, and then why people should get into homes early this year instead of waiting. So the market is basically getting better, I would say. Interest rates going down. People who bought last year, they are sitting now on a lot of equity that they can basically use for whatever they want, if they want to access it at some point. So why should people refinance? I would say, for what I know, people do refinance for many reasons, and you are the expert.
Right.
So you should be basically more intent to tell us why.
Yeah. What reasons do you know? Like, what would be like the list of reasons why you think people refinance?
To get lower monthly payments, to access their home equity for renovations, to consolidate debt, or maybe sometimes to even just change the loan term to maybe pay the mortgage faster.
Yeah, you could do a rate and term refinance, which essentially lowers your interest rate, and that is it, but that is market dependent. So if you bought when rates were 7 and rates are still 7, then it doesn't really necessarily make sense to do that.
Right.
You can consolidate debt. So let's say you have credit cards at like 23% debt, but your house is at 4% debt. Well, maybe it makes sense to put those all together at 7% debt because your monthly payment's going to be lower. So I had somebody went from a 2.5% payment on their house to a 7.5% payment on their house, but they wrapped in all their credit card debt and now they're spending $1,000 less per month.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then stripping out cash. So let's say you want to buy an investment property. You don't have any cash on hand, but you, through equity, gain like $100,000 on your property over the course of this last year. You could pull that out with the new interest rate based on where the market is, and then be able to use that cash to purchase another property. So I have a bunch of people that did that as well.
Okay. So talking about like cash out refinance, what's better when someone wants to do a cash out refinance versus someone who's actually seeking to get like a HELOC?
I would do a HELOC 10 out of 10 times if interest rates aren't better than what you currently have. So if you're going to do a cash out refinance and it's going to make your interest rate better, then of course just do that because you kill two birds with one stone. If you have a 3% rate and you need to strip out equity, then you just do a HELOC because there's no sense in refinancing the whole mortgage into 7.5%. You might as well keep the bulk of it at 3% and then take the HELOC, which right now is like 10 to 12%, which isn't great, but you're not taking out all that much money and you hope to pay it off sooner rather than later. So I wouldn't mess with the interest rate of your current house if you don't have to, but again, in a debt consolidation situation where your monthly outgoing cash is going to be resolved downwards, meaning better, then it would make sense to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked to a bunch of lenders in the past, and then I've heard a lot of conversation also, and many people are basically like deadlock on you should wait 12 months to do a refinance when you purchase a house. Is that true?
No, so we can do it 120 days after the loan gets purchased by the investor. So you'll close on the 1st of the month. It'll get sold to the investor the 10th of the month. That's just kind of back-end lender talk. It doesn't really matter. But essentially, basically 130 days after you close the loan, you're eligible for a refinance, and you could do it every 130 days after that. I wouldn't make it a habit if it doesn't make sense. Don't use your house as like a credit card, really. But you're eligible after 130 days to do it. And if rates are better and it makes sense to do so, then there's no reason not to pull the trigger.
And do people need 20% or 10% equity in the house to refinance?
If you're past 20% equity, you have to maintain 20% equity. And if not, you can go back to the equity you were at. So if you were at 5% equity, you can refinance to 5% equity again. Let's say you got to 10% equity, you could bring it back down to 5. But once you cross the 20% threshold, you have to stay there. You can't go backwards because they don't want you adding mortgage insurance on your loan after that. Right.
Could you please elaborate on that? I'm confused.
So if you have 20% equity in your house, they won't allow you to cash out refinance to 15% equity.
Okay.
Right. So once you get to 20% equity, then you're cut off there. You can't access any more of that cash unless you sell the place.
So let's say my house is worth $500,000.
Okay.
Right? And then my mortgage is $380,000.
Okay. You could take out 20,000.
So I cannot take more than 20,000.
Not 20, but you could do like a HELOC and take out all the way up until, I believe it depends on the HELOC investor, but anywhere from 75 to 80% LTV. So you could take out on the HELOC, so an additional maybe like 30 grand or so.
Okay.
So you could take out the 20 plus the 30, so you could get 50. But yeah, so that's one caveat. Once you get past that 20% threshold, they don't want you going back under that again.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, that's also good because that's also protecting the homeowner.
That's exactly what it does. It protects the homeowner from getting mortgage insurance after they're used to not having it again.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. So for the people who are actually getting into homes right now, when can they hope to refinance?
Yeah. Feds announced they're going to cut interest rates all this year, so 2024. They said, I believe, 6 to 8 times. They don't know exactly how many times they're going to do it.
It sounds better.
Yeah, it sounds better. So you're eligible to do it after 130 days. I would do it after rates are 0.5% better than what you have. So if you have 7 at 6.5, I would talk to your lender about doing it. If rates go to 6, I would talk about doing it again, 5.5, and so on and so forth.
And then every time someone does like a refi, they go back to 30 years. Like, let's say I purchased my house in 2020 and then I want to do it refinance right now.
Yeah.
So the 4 years I've paid the mortgage will just go back to 0.
It doesn't have to. So we can actually just pick up right where we left off. So if you have done 4 years and you only want 26 years remaining, you can. You could do a 25-year note, 20-year, 15, 10. The world's your oyster. You could do it however you want. But as you know, the lower amount of years you have to pay off your loan, the higher your monthly payment's going to be. So if your goal is a lower monthly payment, it probably makes sense to go back to 30 years.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So you're really allowed to do essentially what you want and work with your lender back and forth. Talk about your monthly payment, talk about your rate, talk about consolidating debt, taking out cash, however you want to do it. And they'll come up with some quotes for you or some options that might make sense.
Okay. Is there any cons into refinancing the house?
No, a lot of times the fees can get covered by lenders. I don't know about all lenders, but our company will waive the lender fees entirely. So if you were a purchaser with us, so if you purchase your house with us, you get to refinance at no cost. So really no harm, no foul in doing so. If it's going to help you, definitely do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for everyone that purchased houses with Guild Mortgage, they can come back, refinance as many times as they want at no cost.
At no cost. And I'll take a look at yours, even if you didn't work with Guild Mortgage, and see if there's anything we can do with waiving the lender fees. Because every once in a while, depending on the situation, somebody with good credit and whatnot, we'd be able to waive those to be able to refinance them with the same sort of terms and benefits.
Okay. And then what are the qualifications to get a refinance? Let's say someone wants to just refinance the house to get a lower interest rate, and then someone that wants to refinance the house to move out and buy another property.
Yeah, same qualifications as you had to buy the house. So you still need your 2-year history of work. You still need to make enough income to qualify. You still need good credit, 620 and higher. So it's all the same as what it took to purchase the house. Usually it's not an issue because the people refinancing are the same ones that bought the house.
Okay.
So as long as they didn't have a crazy credit hiccup or lost their job or anything like that, then they have nothing to worry about.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
So for other people that wants to refinance, we are going to leave our contact information below. And if you have any questions that comes up, if you just want to know your options and why you should or shouldn't refinance right now, reach out to Jake. He's going to be giving you all the info.
Yeah, and if the numbers don't pencil, we'll tell you they don't pencil. We quite literally cannot do something if it doesn't pencil out. So I'm not allowed to give you a higher interest rate than what you currently have.
Right.
If it doesn't make sense on another facet, we have a bunch of checks and balances as to if it makes sense or not. So if it does, we can do it, absolutely. And if it doesn't, no one's going to try to get you to do it.
Okay, sounds good. You know where to get Jake. Contact information below. Call him, email him anytime. He's always available. And he's going to be happy to help you guys to get you to your goals if you want to refinance now or in the future.
That's right.